The only way for our profession to truly thrive instead of surviving is when we work together, when we protect one another. The healers heal the healers. We protect the protectors because we can only give great, amazing care.
Welcome, I'm Arvind Sarin, and today I'm joined by Kimberly Maurer, a nurse with nearly 40 years in healthcare, over 20 in labor and delivery, who now runs Unapologetically You Collective. And here's the number that frames this conversation: 67% of nurses report burnout. 23% are considering leaving the profession within 2 years, and that's not a staffing problem. That's a crisis. Kimberly has a message I think every burnt out nurse needs to hear. You don't have to choose between staying in a role that drains you or walking away from everything you've built. There is a third path. Today, we're going to explore what that third path actually looks like. Kimberly, welcome.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Thank you. It's so nice to be here today. So yeah, and actually I just wrote about this today on LinkedIn and talking about the third path because some things have happened since yesterday. And working with nurses and leadership and providing ways to pivot and just telling people, just letting people know that there are options. You're not stuck in any one position. And so many people feel that way. You know, they get into nursing and they feel that bedside is the only path. It's so not right. So many nurses and healthcare professionals are stepping away from the bedside. And a lot of it is lateral violence. A lot of it is nurse on nurse violence. It's not the patients. It's not even so much the system per se. It's that we're not collaborating with one another. We have this hierarchy and this betrayal all the time where we're constantly competing. And, you know, I talk about the letters behind her name. Yes, education is necessary. Yes, I applaud anybody who climbs the ladder. I applaud that. I encourage that. But it's in getting those titles that you actually share that wealth. You share that knowledge with others because you only build your team and your collaboration of nurses to become better, because we all can do better. We all can do better. There's nothing that says that you can't, but this constant competition and battling over titles and who has more clout or who feels that because of those titles they have more worth. It's not right. And yesterday I had posted about looking for leadership roles and looking for, you know, building my business and trying to kind of, again, move forward myself, you know, and I'm always bringing everybody else with me. I include everyone. I feel that no badge weighs more than another. We are all on the same mission. We're here to take care of patients and to take care of one another. And for whatever reason, we've lost the human in humankind. That seems to no longer exist, and I'm not sure why. So it's trying to help those broken cultures and for people to really see who they are. And I've found that if you bring people back to their why, then they have almost this epiphany of, wow, you know, I've been so focused on what was broken, I didn't see the beauty of everything that's right in front of me and why I chose this position or why I chose this profession to begin with. But in the comments yesterday, someone basically told me that because I only have LPN behind my name, that I didn't have what it took to speak about what I was speaking about, basically. And it was, so it was basically credential bias. He was kind of throwing his weight around as to, because he felt that he had more clout than I did. I'm honestly not even really sure, to be honest with you. But it started in this tit for tat. I just kind of nipped it in the butt. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to debate credentials here. I am basing what I'm talking about on my experience and the experience of those around me. I'm not saying I know more than anybody. That's not what I was saying. What I was simply trying to do was bring in the collaborative, to bring in everybody and to get the stories, because I am a writer and I am a storyteller, and it's bringing in those experiences where people feel safe enough to talk about things, because for so much time, we don't talk about things. We just kind of bury it. And I don't know if you know, I always talk about carrying things around in a suitcase, right? We put trauma, we put everything that we carry in a suitcase and we just carry it around with us. We bring it home with us, put it in the closet, grab another one, and start all over. But it
I
would be,
can totally
yeah,
understand what you're talking about because I think that goes to a lot of the fundamentals of therapy as well, where you know you if you numb the pain, then you also numb the joy. You have to sit with the pain and really like unpack it and experience it to then be able to experience the joy as well. And that's from a beautiful book that I read from Brene Brown. That was very interesting. That just echoes this message. So tell me a little bit more about your journey and how you discovered that this as a challenge. I think the audience would love to know your background and how you got started in this and how the role evolved and the changes that you've seen over the last 40 years.
yeah. So, when I started out as a certified nursing assistant when I was 17. And I had the pleasure of having the most amazing director of nursing, Dee Durrett. I will name her, love her. And she showed me what it was. I mean, I'd always cared about people, and I helped my grandparents as they were getting old, and I was actually the hospice nurse for my grandfather when he passed. It was in that foundation that I found the love for nursing, and I knew that I wanted to go on and I wanted to become a nurse. I just knew it. I felt it in my bones, wanted to do that. So I became a nurse at the age of 25. And lo and behold, when I started in labor and delivery, her daughter was actually one of the nurses there. So Linda Clee actually took me under her wing. And it was amazing because I knew that she had been, I don't want to say molded, that's probably not the best word, but she had taken all the learning and the insight and the knowledge from her mom and brought it into her career. And now mentoring and training new nurses, as I was then, to develop and to evolve into this nursing role. So I was in labor and delivery for well over 20 years. And I continued to be an OB educator. I worked with the company and traveled all over the U.S., getting nurses certified in every aspect of OB. And that was a huge learning for me as well. And I loved the adventure of it. And I loved getting to meet new people and seeing the dynamics of other health organizations around the world. And then COVID hit. So COVID obviously was a big kick to everybody. And myself got COVID and I got really sick and ended up having to advocate months and months after multiple falls, injuries, and getting someone to finally listen to me. I had a brain tumor. So 6 months of advocating found out I had a brain tumor. So I had brain surgery and I lost my hearing on the right side. I had Bell's palsy, lost my smile, had 5 eye surgeries. So that's been a struggle. But it was, coming back from that recovery and then having to sustain the mandated COVID vaccines. So coming back from that, then that sent me into a huge catapult. And I ended up having to leave the profession and I lost my identity. I lost my marriage. I lost everything because of that illness. It was really, it's tough to talk about anymore, but it was that time of becoming, when the nurse becomes a patient and seeing yourself, looking at it from the other side of the bed. I'm no longer standing beside the bed, I'm in the bed. And seeing the profession, especially at that time, I was so incredibly disappointed. I was so incredibly disappointed at poorly I was treated. And then I just thought, you know what? I'm a nurse and I have this background, I have this knowledge of everything. And
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you explain more? Like, what do you mean by poorly treated? Like, what about that experience? And of course, it's such a powerful
oh
story,
yeah,
and
I
you
was
should go
just
on.
I was treated poorly. I was treated like I was drug seeking because I kept having these falls and coming into the ED. I never once asked for pain medication, and I was just constantly treated less than. At a point, like the third or fourth visit, I was like, you know what? I am so ashamed of what I'm seeing right now and what I'm witnessing right now. Was COVID hard? Yes. Did we know what we were dealing with? No. But at that time, people were being treated less than human. It's like all of a sudden everybody had lost their flipping mind and decided that it's me and you anymore. It's if we lost that human touch, we lost that kindness. And it was devastating for me as a nurse because I mean, the people that were taking care of me, I didn't always come out and say I was a nurse because, a lot of people think, oh, she thinks she knows it all because she's a nurse. And you get treated differently. And I've seen it over and over again. And it was during that time that I just was like, oh my God, I don't even want to be a nurse anymore. If this is what it's come down to, I'm done. I'm done. I mean, it was already a struggle, being sick and losing my identity and not knowing if I was going to be able to even go back to nursing after having the brain tumor and surgery. And again, it was witnessing that and now seeing where we are. The system is so incredibly broken and people are just, I think COVID just really did a number on people. I really do, because we've witnessed so much death. We witnessed so much struggling because, the long shifts and trying to be present for everybody else and keep your composure. And, I talk about wearing masks all the time. You put a mask on and go to another room and you're someone else again, in that suitcase. We pack it all in a suitcase and we just carry it around with us. And so much has changed since COVID. I'm sure if you've been a patient or had a family member that's been a patient, you've witnessed it, you've seen it. We're so focused on being task oriented and, documenting everything is, our face is here and not here with the patients anymore.
Thank you for sharing that. I know, it's tough and it's emotional, and you're so strong to share that so other people can learn from your experiences. If I understand correctly, so you were a nurse for a number of years, for 20 years, and then, you were going around the United States teaching other nurses and in certifications. And then then COVID happened, and that's when you got an opportunity to be on the other side. And then because you didn't disclose, because obviously you didn't want to, you could get treated differently. Then the experience that you got was, less than optimal, and you just did not appreciate that. And that's when you had this epiphany of, wow, is this how everybody else is getting treated? And is this a problem that's so rampant? And when did you write your book? If you want to share with the audience a little bit about that, and how did you get to writing the book and what it's about?
Yeah. So the book is called The Healthcare Mafia, A Nurse's Testament. I published in August of 25. It's 48 chapters. It tells my story, and then story of, dealing with COVID, dealing with my experience, the illness, kind of navigating a new me. And I had actually met Ashley Scott on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is primarily where I land. And we kind of met each other, and then we started talking in the DMs. And she is amazing. So she's the poetry disruptor, and she turns her traumas and her experience into poetry. So she read something to me one day, and I was like, oh my God, Ashley, this is amazing. You've got to share this with people. You've got to share this with the world, because what she puts into words from her experience, it's like nothing you've ever read before. So anybody in the healthcare profession, that if you're looking for something different, but also that's going to just either rip your heart out or punch you in the gut, one of the two, because she's full of fire. But she took 10 of my chapters and wrote a specific poem for those 10 chapters. And it really inspired the writing in my book. And for both of us, we both were in a dark place, and she had respiratory arrest at work after having a seizure, and it ended her career after 18 years. So her healing has come from writing. So I started writing, and it has been a healing journey for me as well, because I always say that what doesn't kill you makes you live. And it was through writing that book together, both of us were healing, but we also learned so much about each other and about the profession, that everybody has a story. Everybody has something that's either built them or broke them. And it was in writing the book that it gave new life to so many things. And then we went on to write a second book, The Pinning. And now Ashley has went on to write four other books, and she's 4-time award-winning author. And she just received an award at the International Book Awards. It's just amazing. But that just goes to show you that collaborating instead of competing with nurses can be
I love
so
it.
incredibly, yeah, it can just be so incredibly healing. And there's so
And
much.
I feel like this is true across many other professions as well, even for us. If I may share,
Yeah, yeah, please.
we're we're trying to make the lives of the clinicians easier by providing them tools so that they don't have to sit on the kitchen table at 9 p.m. and be finishing that documentation, so that they can actually care for the patient. That's what they went to school for. That's what their goal is, so they can provide the care. But instead, all of the documentation and filling the OSS form, the outcome assessment information set, and coding it the correct way, and then other things that they have to do. Instead of that, let the AI take care of that, but instead focus on just really talking and understanding the patient. And I mean, that is like such a mission for me now, because I see that what I found was that by helping the clinicians, you're actually creating better outcomes for patients as well. But what really surprised me was that it actually maximizes the reimbursements for the agencies as well. They're able to accurately depict the condition of the patient and the improvement in the functional status. And the reason I share this with you is for context, that when I was doing this, I saw a half a dozen other companies doing something similar, trying to solve those problems. But instead of saying, oh my God, don't talk to me and don't look here, I don't want to share with you what I'm doing, I started to talk with all of those CEOs of those agencies. And I found out they were just such amazing people, and everybody was tackling the problem from a slightly different angle. There was a
Right.
great group up in Michigan, and it was a couple. They had been a PT for 18 years, and after COVID, they wanted to, for some reason, move to Canada, and that's why they chose to find another mission where they could remotely help the other colleagues who were still working at that agency. And they started to understand what it takes to do the documentation. But so they shared sort of how they got into it, and how they were helping. And then there were other companies that were trying to, again, solve similar problems, make it, better patient outcomes, better lives for clinicians, less burnout, and then obviously helping the agencies as well. And I feel like by collaborating with them, it's helped all of us excel and learn different perspectives. And even in many other fields as well, I feel like you're absolutely right about not everything can be a competition. You have to be sort of collaborating, of course, and that happens by transparency as well. But there's this Berkeley study that I read about, establishing trust, and it was all about, like, in the numerator there were things like transparency and accountability, and in the denominator was self-orientation. So really, when you're collaborating, you're just trying to maximize trust, with all the different people as well. So that was pretty interesting. So you've written two books. That's fantastic. Congratulations. And what about the second book? What is the pinning about, and what does that how does that relate to the clinician burnout?
Yeah. So the pinning was one of Ashley's poems, and we were talking about the nurse's oath. So the pinning, the pinning ceremony. So you go to the, you know, you finish school, usually just before you're done, and you go to this pinning ceremony, and they put this pin on your chest, like it's a badge of honor. And we started talking about all of the things that we do and the shapeshifter's burden, because we're constantly shapeshifting. We're constantly being something different all the time to fit every situation. So that's kind of where that sparked. But it's interesting what you just said too, because when you're collaborating with all of those people, it wasn't about look at me, look at me. It's look at us and what we can do together, and it's for the greater good. And it's no different in nursing. It's no different in what we're doing. It's all for the greater good. It's all for the care of the patient. It's all for better outcomes. It's all for safety, for psychological safety, for all of those reasons. We do all of that. So high five to you for coming together and seeing that collaboration can be so much more rewarding than competing. and trying to be the best at something, because then when you do that, you tend to not see the people in front of you. You tend to see only yourself and what I can do for me and not what you can do for others. So, I mean, what you just shared with me is amazing. And that's, when, and talking and bringing these stories to light, it's about everyone seeing each other. Look to your left, look to your right. Those are your people. That's your tribe, you know. And when we start to look around and obviously see one another, the game changes. Everything changes because we can do better. We can be better. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We definitely can be better. But wouldn't the healthcare system and everything be so much better if we did that? If everybody just did what you just said.
Absolutely. No, yes, thank you. And I think I also sort of learned it by making a lot of mistakes and just realizing, looking back, that we didn't really have to be in competition. Like the pie is big enough for everybody to, not just survive, but thrive. And I think that's also one of the themes that you talk about. So, what's the difference between surviving in nursing versus actually thriving? And how do you know which one you're doing?
Yeah, so surviving and thriving are not the same, as you know. So surviving is you're just, you get up every day, you go to work, you do the job, you're just there. And like you said earlier, we're numb to so many things. We just kind of tune things out anymore. We've lost that compassion. And Patricia Temple talks about it all the time, and compassion fatigue. We don't give ourselves that time to pause. We don't give ourselves that time to just be. And you know, thriving, you love what you're doing. Again, everybody is collaborating. Everybody is there for the team. Everybody is there for the patient and wanting to make things better. We talk so much about the negative things and the things that are broken in healthcare. I mean, it's so obvious to all of us who are living it, working it, breathing it every day. It's trying to get the C-suite to see it. Such a silo, and the foundation is all of the first responders, the nurses, the techs, I could name everybody in the profession. I mean, it's all of that. That's the foundation. And do we know healthcare is a business? Hell yeah, it's a business. We get that. But if you don't focus on the people and you don't take care of the people, you don't really have a successful business. You have a business, and you're looking at the overhead and the profits and the metrics of it all. But you are only as good as the people that you take care of. And people see that, people feel that. That's why people leave. They're just like, I'm done. I'm done. I can't take this brutal environment anymore. I can't take these long shifts anymore. I can't take being treated less than. And what are we teaching the new girls coming in, the new guys coming in, the new nurses, and not even just nurses, it's everybody. All the new graduates that are coming in for every single role. Are we saying, ready play, or are we squishing them? Because what they're seeing, what they're witnessing, teaches them. They know when to speak up. They know when to keep their head down, mouth closed. And that is so sad. That is so sad. But we see it all the time. We see it all the time. And people are so afraid to speak up because of the golden handcuffs, the pension. I can't lose my job. Trying to find another job. You think in healthcare, trying to find a job is easy. It is so not. It is so not. And the new ATS systems and everything, for your resumes and for your applications, it doesn't take into account the years of experience and the person behind that resume, which again makes it so difficult. But what are we teaching? Because they are watching. They are watching everything that we do. Again, they learn to know when to speak up, when to not say a word. And that's when accidents happen. That's when bad things happen, because people are too afraid to speak up about things. Are they going to be
I
targeted?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think, a lot of what you said makes so much sense because I think what that produces, that cutthroat environment, can produce trauma for a lot of people. And that trauma can come out in very unhealthy ways. And that's why it sort of goes back to, you have to just really experience the emotion, and you have to have a way to let it out as well. And oftentimes, when you're collaborating, you have that outlet to share that with other people. So I want to, little bit, for the people in the audience, the skeptics who may think that, okay, well, while I want to collaborate, but let's say you're a home health nurse and you have, 5 visits planned for that day, and then you still have to finish the documentation, and you're the one who's getting all the very complex and difficult patients where you have to provide a lot of, the skilled nursing, and it's happening week after week. But then this other nurse who's been a little bit longer than you, who is a favorite of, let's say, the director of nursing, and this is all made up, but if that person is not, is only doing 3 visits and is still getting all the easy patients, and the documentation's being done by the QA because she's cordial with the QA. So how do you give them a framework to think about and navigate through this situation?
Favoritism is always a hard topic. It's always difficult. God, I've been a victim of that myself, and again, trying to manage it all and trying to work through that. And sometimes I think we just feel like, yeah, I just don't belong. I just don't fit in here. I don't fit in here. And that's what I say is there's so many other opportunities out there. There's nothing that says that you are stuck being in a broken culture, that you are stuck being in an environment like that. Start looking. There are other avenues, and so many nurses are becoming entrepreneurs now, and leaving the bedside because of so many things such as that. That again, that favoritism, that trying the cliques, and we talk about that as high school. That's high school and scrubs. Basically you haven't left that trauma. It's still there, and mean girls are mean. They just are. And with a profession that's predominantly female, it is tough to leave that. And I talked
I would
about.
say it's, to interject, but I would say it's across the board, not just female.
Oh yeah,
but
absolutely, absolutely. And I talk about bullies. You didn't suddenly become a bully. You've always been a bully. Now you just have a badge and a title.
yeah,
So that didn't make it any better.
and that's one aspect of it. But I feel like even someone who may be grounded and humble for a lot of the times, there can be instances where they haven't processed an emotion, and then that's coming out in an unhealthy way. And what do you do? And this is a challenge that I've myself tried to solve as well. So like, you continue to be in that partnership, or you use replacement threat, and you're like, okay, if you're these are my boundaries, if you're going to be like this, or if you're going to behave this way, I mean, as much as I care, and as much as I care for you as a human being, I mean, I've got other opportunities to partner with other people. But I feel like at least my coaches tell me that, Arvind, you got to think partnership. When you partner with somebody, you don't leave. You don't just bolt, the next time when they cross the line, but instead you just sit there with them and you try to explain it to them and you work things out. But that seems to be a concept that, for me has not has not worked so much because, I run my own business, and I have not, I've had a job, but not for a very long time. And I feel like when I get into partnerships as well, if the other partner is not doing right, then I'm like, okay, well, here are the boundaries. So we got to leave. So what's your perspective on that? How do you draw that balance and continuing to be a partner, or, replacing that, person with another partner who now can stay in those boundaries and can respect your boundaries?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And that's where I say get comfortable with getting uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You have boundaries. You have a voice. Don't let anyone ever shrink you. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you're small. And that's the first step. And, I say that the most sacred boundary is this. If it dims your light, it wasn't meant to carry your fire. So you have to have those tough conversations. And these are adults, and we have to have these conversations. And if somebody isn't pulling their weight, if someone is making the partnership that unruly or that uncomfortable, then it's time to have that tough conversation, because you can't tolerate unacceptable behavior over and over again. What is it worth? Is it worth your health? Is it worth the stress over it? Is it worth the sleepless nights? Is it worth the poor eating? Maybe other ways, drinking. Suicide in healthcare professionals is so incredibly scary and so incredibly high. it's again, those tough conversations. Let them go. Let them go. Let them. If they want to
Oh
be an
yeah,
ass,
I love that.
let them. If they want to behave this way, let them go. Again, be comfortable with having a tough conversation, because we are adults and no one should be treated poorly. No one should feel like they are less than, and no one should be bullied or beat down in any shape or form. Those people, it only takes one person to ruin a whole batch, right? It only
And
takes one person.
totally.
Because if,
And
if people feel intimidated, if people feel intimidated all the time, or that they have to, that they're walking on eggshells every day, they don't want to be there. And again, you are breaking that person, and it doesn't have to be that way.
totally.
That's kind of what I say on that. Are those conversations easy? No, they are never easy. It's
But
in how
your
you.
success is determined by the number of difficult conversations you have every day. Well, hey, I mean, if you go for easy, you're gonna stifle your growth.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we are there to protect the patients, and that is the bottom line. We are there to protect the patients. We also have to
And
care for each other. We also have to care for each other. And we talked about it in the Nurse Collective, actually. Last week, we had a whole episode on lateral violence and boundaries, and just that whole conversation that just went on and on and on. And it trickles down. It's a ripple effect. It trickles down to everybody. Everybody feels it. Everybody witnesses it. But the thing is that people aren't comfortable talking about it. And when I went to Modern Nurse Fest, and I did my presentation there last week, and it was about being silenced, and the silence that we deal with all the time, and something that we've been silenced about. And after this presentation, what do you refuse to be silent about anymore? And you know what? Every single person, I had them all write down this on piece of paper, and I went around and collected it. And do you know what? Every single person wrote down bullying, the bullying, that the bullying is so prevalent. Either they have been a victim of it, or they've witnessed it, but been too afraid to talk and speak up about it. So I tell people, find your voice. Being silent about things does not make it better, does not make it go away. You cannot pretend that it's not happening. It only ends when people speak up. It only ends when people feel safe enough to speak up. And if you've gone to your manager and you've talked to them about it and nothing changes, go above them. There's a ladder for a reason. Go above them. Because the only way for our profession to truly thrive instead of surviving is when we work together, when we protect one another. The healers heal the healers. We protect the protectors, because we can only give great, amazing care if we feel cared for ourselves. So I
absolutely,
hope that answers that question for you.
it does. And I think the bottom line is the compassion as well. Starts with self. You have to, first give compassion, show compassion to yourself. So for the nurses listening right now, they're at a crossroad, burnt out and questioning everything. What's the first thing you tell them?
Go back to your why. Go back to your why and start journaling. A lot of my clients journal, and I take them back to their why and have them journal. Just write down the pros and cons, why you're doing this. Do I stay? Do I go? And start writing about it. And I've had so many people come back to me when we meet up again and saying, oh my God, I can't even tell you how therapeutic that was, because I didn't realize how much anger I had, how much trauma I was carrying, how much I had felt so betrayed. But then when I looked at pros and why I got into this profession in the first place, it really got my wheels turning. It really got me thinking, what can I
I
do
love
to
it.
make this better? What can I do to be better? Because we can all do better, every single one of us. So you can't always turn it outward and looking and blaming. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about,
Totally.
so maybe it's me. Maybe I need to change something. So turn that mirror around and do some reflection, and think about what do I how can I be a better nurse? How can I be a better caregiver? How can I be a better
Right.
colleague? And turn it around. And when you do that, Arvind, you find we all have little things that can be better. We all have ways to work on things. But it's that realization. It's that reality check. Put yourself in check. What am I doing that maybe someone else doesn't like? Or maybe what have I said that, because sometimes a lot of times it's not so much what you said, but it's how you said it. Because people don't always remember what you said, but they always,
How
always
you
remember
feel.
how you made them feel.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
I would say
And
that's
there's
probably the
something
biggest thing.
profound. And it's so profound. And even earlier, what you had said about like trying to understand, of course, your why, but also the insight from why someone's acting that way. Is it that they're in some sort of a physical trouble or some mental, stuff that they are not doing right? They're not getting enough sleep. They're suffering with some sort of addiction. I think that could be another reason that they may need help, and you could show some compassion to even them. And I like how you talked about, journal, because that's what I go back to as well. I feel like all of the answers are within us. And if you just meditate, I mean, then you could just really be present to everything that's going on and already have your sort of solutions worked out. And then it's all about having that courage to act. And if you take the first step, you stand up against the bullies or against any of the people that you feel like are crossing those boundaries. I mean, I think that's very powerful. So, Kimberly, this is so fantastic. Let me try to capture sort of what we covered here. So, of course, a lot of these nurses are getting burnt out, and your message is that it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to choose, between sort of staying in that role that's draining you out or walking away from everything you've built. I mean, your third path is to ask yourself the why, to start journaling, to start laying your boundaries and understanding other people as well, and not be in a competition, but instead collaborate with your colleagues in producing better outcomes for the patients. And again, it's going to come from when you have answered the question of why. And I think your coaching is doing great. So if someone wants to get in touch with you, if you can share, how should they do that? Of course, we'll put a link in the notes as well for people to go ahead and reach you. But would you like to share what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, of course, of course. So you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can send me an email at kimberlymaurer731@gmail.com. DMs are always open, always available. Find me, follow me. Yeah, absolutely. That's probably the best way. And you can find my book, The Healthcare Mafia, A Nurse's Testament, on Amazon. It is in Kindle and in paperback. And I'm always open. And a lot of times people, honestly, Arvind, just want to talk for a minute. They just want someone to validate their concern. They want someone to validate their worth. And sometimes
Absolutely.
it's just saying, "Hey, I see you. I see you."
Mhm.
And like you said, if we just took the time for a minute to maybe look past the anger, or maybe try and figure out why they're behaving the way that they are, because we never know what someone else is going through. We never know. We don't walk a day in their shoes. So we don't know unless they feel confident or safe enough to talk about it. But I always say, just let people be seen. Be like, "Hey, are you okay? Is there anything I can do for you?" Let them be seen. Let them know that they are valued and that they have worth, that their presence matters. That's probably the biggest thing, because it's okay to not be okay. But pay attention to the people around you. Pay attention to your colleagues. Somebody just doesn't suddenly act out and become unreasonable or abusive for no reason. There's something deeper. So just pay attention. Pay attention. It's your tribe. It's your people. Pay attention.
I love that. And this was important. Kimberly, thank you. And in the audience, if you're a nurse listening and you're at the crossroads, I hope this gave you something. You're not broken. The system might be, and there's a path forward. See you next time. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.